It's a four-banger in the CFL tonight. Jim Barker joins us from the CFL on TSN. Hey, Coach, welcome to the program. And I'm going to jump right into it because times is a premium. I had you prepped up for this. One big question for every CFL team. Let's go through the games tonight. Hamilton at Toronto. What's the one big question this season for those teams?
Well, I think you hit it on the head in your first segment. You talk about quarterbacks. Obviously, Bo Levi Mitchell is the key for Hamilton. They signed Stephen Dunbar this week because to be honest, in training camp, their receiving core was garbage, and they were really struggling. So, they have a new guy named Shamar Bridges. Their receiving core has got to answer the call. But here's the bottom line. Scott Milanovich has to put together an offense that'll allow Bo Levi to stay healthy. They can't sit back and run, six guys out and allow basically the offensive line, put them in a position where they all have to be perfect. He needs to keep backs in. He needs to play action. He needs to do things to help Bo Levi. And I think he's going to do that. I think he's going to run the ball. He's going to use a lot of formations. I think he's going to do a lot of no huddle, which is going to put some pressure on defenses. That's the most important thing. Defensively, I think they'll be solid. That Toronto, it comes down to the quarterback, just like every other team. And we're looking at 9 games of basically they go from the MVP of the league to a guy who hasn't played. And obviously, until he shows something, he's the worst quarterback in the league just because he hasn't played. Nobody knows what he is. So he had one game in backup last year. So are they going to be able to win games? I'm not so sure that they are. Their defense is solid, especially up front. I think their defense up front is as good as there is in the league. Their secondary's got some big question marks. They lost Jamal Peters. He's gone. And I just think that they lost to Darius Pickett. I think those are big questions for the Argonauts. So, again, it comes down to the quarterback position, and can they hang close for 9 games until Chad Kelly comes back? And then when he comes back, is he going to come back? How's that last game going to affect him? Is he going to be able to come back and be the Chad Kelly that won 16 games last year? So Toronto has the receivers are basically the same. They're a good receiving core. They've added Kevin Mattel from the draft, who I think is going to be a real good player. They've added Rasheed Bailey to the receiving core. So I think they've got some good things. They lose Ouellette, and they have to get a running back. And Deonta McMahon, I'm guessing, is going to be the guy. But how is he going to be in protection and that type of thing? So, again, quarterback's what it comes down to. You can watch that tonight. And I'm excited for tonight's games because of being able to see some of the different things that are going to happen in these games.
I'm sure you are. Scott Milanovich, after their first preseason game, said, if I have the quote correct, it was just okay. He seemed not happy with their play in the preseason opener. So what's Milanovich going to be looking for tonight? And Ryan Dinwiddie, too.
Well, what every coach is going to look for is they have to eliminate the errors that they made. And obviously, it's a first preseason game. A lot of these guys have never been in the league before. But the number of penalties that Hamilton took against Ottawa was sickening. I mean, it was sickening. It was like they never even talked about no yards. And Edmonton goes in. They basically have over 400 yards, 450 yards against Saskatchewan and lose because they fumble the ball 5 or they give it away 5 times. And they improve their special teams incredibly, yet turn the ball over twice on special teams. They're a bad team. They've been a bad team. Can they become a good team by eliminating that stuff? There's reasons why teams become bad. And what happens is if you don't get that stuff out of your system early, and that's why I said next week's game, Saskatchewan going into Edmonton is as big a game as there is in the year because one of those teams is going to come out of that feeling great about themselves, and one of those teams is going to come out and saying, "Oh, here we go again." And neither team made the playoffs, and I think that's a huge game. Also tonight in the East, we have Ottawa and playing Montreal. And I spent time in both camps this last week. I went to Ottawa for a couple days and then up to Montreal and was there a couple days and then watched their game. And Montreal is the most complete team. I think Darren was bang on when he said that, or in your first segment. They don't have any. There's no huge question marks. to me, except for running back. They're going to have Walter Fletcher. Now, how long is he going to be able to stay healthy at his size? They always had kind of that, even when Stanback was hurt, they were thought of as Stanback's team. And they had this physical, we're going to knock the heck out of you mentality. Can they get that back without Stanback there? That, to me, is a big question. I think their defense, again, is a bit of a question because of Sean Lemon not being there. How long will he be out? Again, I think it could be quite a while. I mean, he bet on his own team. That's a big thing. So it could be. Who knows? Who knows? It's undetermined, but that is a hole for them. He was playing in camp with the ones, and I think that's a big question mark in terms of their pass rush. I think their interior's good with Mustafa Johnson, Dylan Wynn. Those guys are solid pros, and they'll do a good job inside. And Noel Thorpe will just keep them close. It doesn't matter who you put back there. Noel Thorpe's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, and he will find a way to keep people from scoring a lot of points. Ottawa, we got the big question of, as Darren talked about, Drew Brown. What is he? Is he going to be like Dane Evans was when he got his opportunity to start, where now the entire franchise is on his shoulders? How's he going to handle that? I will say I saw Jeremiah Mazzoli in training camp, and he was on the side doing things, but looked way better than he did last year at any time when I saw him in camp, even though he was practicing last year, and they probably brought him back too early. So when he gets back, they can be a real factor. They've got a really nice receiving core. Their big question mark is right tackle, and they need to play a Canadian there. And Zach Pelahos and Dante Bull, their top 2 draft picks the last 2 years, are battling for that spot. They cut Philip Norman, who started in the preseason game at right tackle, but they have to play Canadian there because of the ratio. And one of those 2 guys is going to play it. Again, that's going to be the big battle tonight. And people who watch it on TSN, focus in on that, because I'm sure one will play one half, one will play the other, and then they're going, because it's kind of a split thing over there about who should be the starter. So that, to me, is going to be a big question in Ottawa. I like the receiving core. I think they've got some experience, some size, in Ackland and Rhymes. And then Nick Mardner, their draft pick, is a really good-looking receiver, 6'4". He comes back to the ball. He does a lot of natural things. So I like their receiving core. Defensively, their secondary has got to be able to stop big plays. They do a great job versus the run. Their linebacking core, they have a new guy named Davion Taylor who's battling Santos Knox for the starting Mike position. Really a talented player if you get number 45. I just watched him on film, and just very talented playing linebacker. He was a 3rd-round draft pick of the Eagles and can really play. He's only 25 years old, and so it'll be interesting to see how that battle goes on defense. But they've never had a problem stopping people running the ball. They were one of the top teams in the league. Where they have problems is they give up 50-yard pass plays and long pass plays, and they have to stop that. They have to find a way in the secondary to not allow those big plays to happen. So, again, Ottawa is a question mark because of the things we talked about.
So I want to move on to Calgary at Winnipeg tonight. By the way, is any one of these 4 on television? Pardon me for not knowing. Which one?
We have the first game is Ottawa, Montreal, and then the second game is Edmonton in BC.
Oh, good.
So I'm getting home at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Congratulations. I know you're excited about it. Calgary at Winnipeg, so it's not on TV. What's the questions for those 2 teams?
Well, you hit it on the head. Will Jake Mayer please stand up? I think that when he came in the league, I thought he was going to be dynamite. I thought he was going to be the next great thing. And then he just put it kind of on hold. Now, he went through a lot of changes in his second year with receivers. Beggleton was in and out, and then, he lost Malik Henry. Well, he's lost Malik Henry again this year, and that was their deep threat. How much is that going to affect him? He's got to stand up and play great. Their running game's going to be solid. They do a great job up front with the offensive line. They change people all the time, but Pat Delmonico is as good an offensive line coach as there is in the league. So they'll always be solid at running the ball. Defensively, though, again, they lose a lot of defensive. They lose Wigan. They lose a Berglund. They lose some things on their defensive front that give me question. They returned Judge and Awi. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. They signed DeMario Houston to hopefully help their secondary because they've had some problems against the pass. Again, it's going to come down to Jake Mayer. If it's a Jake Mayer who played when he first came in the league and with kind of reckless abandon and made those throws you have to make, they can beat anybody. But if it's the Jake Mayer who played, where he had the rotating receivers, and there's probably a lot of things that went into that, they're going to have a long year.
Winnipeg?
So that's Calgary. And then Winnipeg.
And Winnipeg?
Winnipeg they're not playing anybody, but they don't have to. I'm really against quarterbacks like a Drew Brown. If he wasn't playing, that would be a problem for me, because to me, it's about how good can you get your team. But in the case of Zach Collaros, he's been with all those guys for 5 years now and knows them well enough. And there's not a lot of change there. Their receiving core is basically the same. They'll have one guy out. Bailey will be out, and they'll replace him with somebody else. Oliveira's back. Defensively is where their questions are. They lose Jeff Coat up front, Ricky Walker up front. Big Hill's not going to be there. So defensively, are they going to be able to stop the run? Are they going to be able to be the physical team they've been? That's what set them apart from the BC Lions, I felt last year, was they were the physical team. And when you come down to one game you got to win, you need to be more physical. And again, are they still going to be that team without the Adam Big Hill leadership? You take his play out of it. It's what does he bring to that? We're just going to kick the hell out of him mentality that he has, and I'll line up in the far secondary and come up and whack somebody. And he just sets a tempo for their team. Not having that will be a factor for them. So it's going to be interesting to watch how their defense plays early in the season. So, but Winnipeg they'll be solid, and they'll be the team to beat. And then BC tonight playing Edmonton. We talked a little bit about Edmonton. Go ahead.
They all want to know what your one big question is for the Riders, because there's a few. What would it be?
There are a couple. Obviously, the obvious question is, can they keep Trevor Harris healthy? And to me, Trevor Reed, the left tackle, who I think is winning that job, is the guy who's going to determine whether or not they're going to be able to protect him. Again, Blake, if he can stay healthy, and Godber and those guys inside are experienced, and then they've got Hardrick playing right tackle, who's experienced. I like their receiving core. I think they have a great blend of different kinds of people. The one thing Corey Mace has done is tried to change the culture and give them a more physical mentality. That's the AJ Ouellette, bringing him into the mix, I think does that. So they're going to be a team that's going to be very interesting. I think that defensively they'll be solid, just like Noel Thorpe in Montreal. Corey Mace is not going to let that defense falter. I mean, they're going to be solid. They're going to do things, sound. They're not going to give up a ton of big plays and things like that. Their secondary is a little suspect. To the field side, I really like Milligan. I like Deontay Williams. I think those guys are really good in the boundary. Jameer Thurman's going to give them a presence in the middle. They'll lose a little bit by losing Larry Dean, but Jameer Thurman gives them that. So I think defensively they'll be okay. Question is, can they keep Trevor healthy and that left tackle spot that's been a thorn in their side for the last few years? Can they finally find that guy that can play that spot? And in watching film of him, he's really he's a good player. He just has to learn the spatial difference, and that's what gives a lot of these guys a big problem, is that yard off the ball is as tough for the offensive lineman as it is for the defensive lineman. It's a major adjustment for him. So, and you could see him struggling a bit with that. So he's learning how to take the angles so he doesn't give the guy too much run and things like that. But that's a key for Saskatchewan, I believe, is their ability to take care of that.
Edmonton and BC tonight, preseason finale for both on TSN. We have a lot of viewers in Edmonton. I'm sure they're dying to know what your question, and the biggest question for the Elks, is going into the year.
Can they lose the mentality of here we go again? They just need to. I thought they played really well against Saskatchewan. I really did. I thought they did a lot of really good things. McLeod Bethel Thompson looked very efficient until he got it into the score zone, and then they faltered and kicked field goals. I think they need to be able to finish. But they moved the ball pretty much at will. Their receiving core, there's not a better receiving core in the league. They're as good a receiving core as there is in the league. Brown has the ability to be a top-notch runner. I'm not as sold on their offensive line. I think they're middle of the pack in the league. I think they're okay, not great. McLeod, what is he going to do? And if they don't have success early, how long until the screams for Trey Ford happen that now becomes a factor in their club? Those are the things. That's why that first game is so vital for them, I think, because of that.
Might be
that whole
halftime
situation. Yeah, it could be. Who knows? But it's a good problem to have, but it's also a problem if it becomes a problem, if you know what I mean. And then defensively, I think Chris.
That's why we love it. I'm sorry. We only have.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
You finish on that. We have 3 minutes left. So defense for the Elks and then BC.
Yeah, the defense for the Elks, I see them as, again, Chris Jones, he knows what he's doing there. He's turned it over to Jason Shivers. But, again, he's still going to be very, very involved in it. He's doing right now he's had 2 years to build this. Like what Corey Mace is trying to do this year. Chris has had 2 years to do it. Now they've got 4 wins in each year. It's crucial that his defense steps up and plays at a different level. They have a lot of new guys that I don't know. I mean, they didn't re-sign AC Leonard. They've got new guys on the edge. They just signed us. They just drafted in a supplemental draft Antonio Alfano, who was a great high school player, a Canadian, was recruited by everybody. So they just signed him, and it looks like they're playing him on the edge tonight and looking at their depth chart. But that's, to me, the important. I just don't know a lot of their defensive players, and they're playing a guy named O'Neill at Sam linebacker. Their Mike linebacker DeBlanco's not starting. They're starting someone. So just learning those guys is kind of what I have to do. The BC Lions, okay, that's the team that's the most interesting. I think going to be. They're hosting this year, so obviously it's a huge year for them internally because they have the Grey Cup coming there. I didn't think they were physical enough last year. Now, what do? They go out and they get William Standback, the definition of physical on offense in the CFL. So that's going to help them, just their mentality. It will help the offensive line knowing we've got that guy behind us. Those kinds of things are important, just the people that are around you. On defense, they lose the leading sack guy in the league in Betts. And can they replace him? They bring in Christian Covington, who spent 9 years in the NFL. Great player. Out of Rice, great player. But he's been 9 years in the NFL. Is he going to be able to handle the speed of this game? What's going to happen with him? They're playing him inside. They need to be more physical inside. They're just a little undersized. I felt like that hurt them last year. So it's going to be interesting to see if physically they can step their game up a little bit. The addition of Standback will help, but can they step it up enough to catch the Bombers?
Can you believe we went through it all? A wonderful warm-up for you, Jim, because you're really going to be working at it tonight. I know it's a long day and night for you. I'll be watching. I love this chat. I was talking to some CFL people today. They said, I can't wait for the show today. Jim is so great on your show. I'm like, yes, he is. So I want to pass that along. And Jim, thanks. Break a leg tonight.
I love it. Thanks, Rod. See you next week.
Thank you.